Thank you, Lisa. I want to invite the speakers to go up, and we're open for questions. And I must confess that I'm responsible for the sugar that you got for breakfast. And I was moving uneasily in the chair while Lisa was giving her talk. So these are conclusions for next time that...
No, the most important thing is that there's nothing wrong once in a while in having it. I had a piece. There's nothing wrong with it. It's when you have a lot of it all the time. Enjoy it. Use it, discreetly, but absolutely.
Okay, so we'll start taking questions.
Hello. My question is to Professor Gressel. I would like to know, what do you answer to the claim that people that are against genetic engineering don't do it because they are so afraid of genetic engineering, but they're afraid of who controls genetic engineering, and they don't believe that there is a dichotomy between do nothing, it's a right dichotomy between the choices are not between doing nothing or just embrace genetic engineering. They believe that there is a big connection between the toxic environment that we live in, that you just heard about in the last lecture, and the people that control the genetic engineering, and the kind of thinking that think that there is a simple cause and effect that you can solve complex environmental, health, and social questions by simple technological answers is completely false, and this is exactly what brought us to the miserable situation that we are in nowadays.
Raise your hand so I can see who you are, so I can look at least in the right direction. There, okay. First of all, right now, some of the major products are out there from the private sector. That's true. They're out there to make money. But the first products have nothing to do with your food supply, actually. They're reducing insecticide usage by replacing insecticides with BT. They're replacing the more residual herbicides with those that have less environmental impact. But the important thing is what the public sector could be doing, is doing, but can't get out because of regulatory concerns. The fact that the public sector generated the golden rice, and it's been 10, 15 years in regulatory, is a real problem. And it's a public sector product. Nobody in the public sector has the kind of money to get a product through regulation. So if it hadn't been for the Gates Foundation supporting the Philippines, taking it through regulatory now, golden rice might never get out. So the products we're developing in the public sector, which can be beneficial, aren't getting out as quickly as they should. The whole regulatory system is a little bit skewed too, because as I pointed out, you have to do all sorts of things to grow something that's non-toxic, that's genetically engineered, but you can grow anything that's totally toxic, which isn't genetically engineered. So the regulatory system has to be based on the product, not on the process. And I think we have to know that the product is safe, not that the process is safe. Process is, what does it matter how you make something as long as the product is safe? We make a lot of things that the process, in chemistry, that the process is highly toxic, but the product is safe. So we have to deal with products and not processes.
Hi, this question I think refers to Professor Berry about, you said about family eating together, children making food, etc. What about in my parents' age, children used to make food in school. They were like, so the schools were built and still are built like this. So they could have a kitchen there and children will take turns in making food. Where is it standing now? Because children are having like hot meals, which are disgusting in any way. They are junk food under all circumstances.
Yes.
So where is it standing?
Well, we hope this is going to change, and to bring back what we used to call domestic sciences, that there are cooking and learning how to eat and according to the period. But the other thing is what we want to use positively, as they use in Japan, and Dorit Adler was telling me about this, where you use the meal at school for learning social skills, talking to one another with the teacher, and pass me the salt, please, or not the salt in this case, pass me the... Pass me the herbs. We are very well aware of it, and the whole point, Vabe Tomatov, we're at the right place now to make an effect, and a lot of people here in the audience are very keen to change, and we hope to change it in schools. Yes.
As a registered dietitian and home economist in America for decades, I found that my kids 35 years ago, 40 years ago, were being brainwashed to eat the high sugar foods when they got into kindergarten that undid pretty much everything that I was doing beforehand. And I still find the problem, and I've worked a lot with developmentally disabled and with the food system in the schools. The parents need to be educated so that they can bring it to school. And I'm sorry, when ketchup is still considered a vegetable, there is a problem. And I don't know what to do with it.
I agree 100% with what you said. I mean, the most important thing is education. Education in the family to parents, education in school, education when you're sitting in the doctor's office. I always think that's a wonderful opportunity. For pregnant women in a pediatrician's office, we all have to work on this together. When you go to the dentist, when you go to the doctor, in school, we all have to have the same message. And you're right, it has to start in the home, in school. We can't all give different messages, or in school you can't get the message that we're supposed to eat healthy, but then you have vending machines and you serve awful food and you serve a lot of sweetened beverages, which is unfortunately too common in the States. So we need to put out, we need to both have the written word, and we also need to actually provide the services, and of course what's most important, to make it accessible and affordable to all, so that it's not just in certain schools kids get healthy foods, or in certain clinics people are educated about healthy eating.
Is again for Dr. Lisa Sasson. It's about the closeness of us, the consumers of food, to the process of growing food. Many of us have come to believe that if food is grown near our homes, in our gardens, in whatever formats, community, schools, CSA, this can have a very positive influence on the relationship of kids and adults to their food. I don't think it was specifically mentioned except in your slide of children in a school garden. Has this been proven? Because it's proving very difficult here in Israel to take it from the stage of believing it's good to having policy that enables cities to encourage locally grown food.
First of all, I'll talk very little about the States. There are community gardens and schools in the States, but here there are also school gardens and community gardens, but there is no doubt that when a child's involved in the planting and growing of fruits and vegetables, they are more curious about it and they want to eat it, they enjoy eating it. So I think that that is clear, and that's something we're hoping as a result of this meeting we'll see more emphasis on having school gardens and community gardens, because if a child participates in the process, they want to taste it, they want to eat it, they want to cook it, they grew with their own hands. And it's a wonderful opportunity also to teach science in school. There's so many reasons to have community gardens. So yes, we know it works, we've seen it in the States. There used to be community gardens here, they're back again in Israel. I'm not saying they're all over, and school gardens, but to answer your question, absolutely. I think it's one of the best things you could do is get the kids involved. A lot of kids have no idea that vegetables grow from trees or plants. They think it comes from the microwave or in a plastic bag. I've witnessed it. I've gone to schools, and when I ask kids this, they just assume you get it, like kids think that money grows on trees. There are kids that think that vegetables are coming from the supermarket. Got to take kids to farms just for visits. Let them see where food comes from. That disconnect between food and where it's grown is one of the reasons that you kids could just eat anything, because they have no idea what real food is.
I will just add to what Lisa said. Tomorrow we will have a session, one of our parallel sessions. We'll be discussing these issues, and you are all welcome to come and hear what's being done in Israel to try to promote exactly what you're talking about.
Hi, I'd just like to ask Professor Berry a question more related to food wastage in this country, from the supplier to the consumer. I find that's quite disturbing. A lot of the foods that are perishable, we find that with expiry dates written in rigid both in the control and in the belief that any foods after they expired are useless for consumption. Maybe we could use the French type of example when dealing in legislation.
Thank you for the question. James, could you come up, please, and ask about expiry dates? He's the real expert here, and I think it would be more appropriate for you to answer. What do we do about expiry dates?
Thank you very much. Sure, food waste is kind of a scandal, right? And I think that the whole system, I suppose, is built around getting the volume out there, getting it purchased, and then after that, who cares? So I think there's got to be a lot of, I suppose, rationalization of what we actually want to achieve. I think working on expiry dates could work. Getting people to consume in a more smart manner is better. I've never actually looked at an expiry date or bothered about it. I use my own sense of smell. So I think what's been said here about kind of taking a more rational approach to the decisions we make and the kind of activities that the behavior that we have will go quite a long way, I think. But of course, the majority of people do look at expiry dates. So there needs to be better guidance. Because also food safety is a massive issue too. But there are systemic reasons, I think, why we waste so much food. So as a part of a wider approach, I'm now broaching on what I'm going to say later, but a sort of wider approach to a shift towards more sustainable food systems, then taking food waste in that context is very, but taking it seriously is very, it's a symptom of what's bad. So it can't be dealt with in isolation.
Thank you, Jay. Jonathan, you want to say?
Yeah. Two quick comments. First, about school gardens. They're the best thing that ever happened because it teaches the children what the farmer's up against. It also sees how insects will eat up their gardens, how diseases can affect them, and help them understand what the farmer is fighting to provide the food for them. And the other thing about the spoilage, there are many different ways, especially in genetic engineering, to extend the shelf life of food so that it can get to the market and be in your kitchen, even without refrigeration, for an extra few days or a week. And that's also very important. That comes from simple genome editing by getting rid of some of the factors that cause, for instance, tomatoes to rot.
If I just may add, there's one more issue concerning the food waste, and this is that we are forced to buy packages. So it's also a matter of how do you sell your product.
So we're pressed at time, but I do want to allow a few more questions because this is really, really important. This is, what we made the conference for to hear what you have to say. and, you know, to open things for discussion. So I hope you bear with me before the coffee break, 2 more minutes.
I have a question, please. Bioengineering was mentioned, a few things, genetic engineering and so forth, and I can't help but think about like dog breeds. And the question is, which precautionary measures are taken so that the engineered breeds of plants and crops are not malformed as we kind of failed some breeds of dogs, at least I see them. What precautionary measures are taken to create breeds that are strong and aren't susceptible to disease and so forth?
Okay, what are the precautions? The precautions are that the final product is safe. That's the question. Is the final product safe? And actually, by genetic engineering, you can come up with a safer product quicker. Let's say you have a problem with diseased tomatoes. You can go out to Peru and find a tomato that's resistant to a certain disease. And you can cross it with your regular tomato, but you're bringing in all the poisons that wild tomato was making. And you have to get rid of all those poisons by breeding. On the flip side, you can just take the gene for disease resistant from that wild tomato separately, take it out, leave all the rest of the junk behind, and put it in your crop. So actually you have a way of doing it quicker and easier and ending up with a safer product more quickly. But the whole question is the final product safe? The way you do it really should not matter.
Okay, last question. Over there. In the, yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for the presentations. I'm by the name Ronald and from Uganda. I would like to inquire something about the level of education versus the kind of food in relation to the age of the person. I have a challenge back in my home country. The students at a higher level of education always tend to associate some kinds of food, let's say chips and chicken, the fries, to their level of education. So really find that we are trying to teach the kids in schools the kind of food to eat that is oil-free, fat-free, but then these are the very people, like in our higher institutions of learning, that are running for the food that is full of oils and fats. So I really find a challenge who is the agent of change towards a health diet when we still have these students who are well informed about the health diet, still going in for the food that is full of oil, fast foods. So how can we deal with this? Yet we are trying to say that education is changing the level, the type of food we are eating.
Thank you for the question. If I understood it correctly, who are the agents of change? The children should be the agents of change. Now, what I want to explain is if by an education, and we've done this, by educating in schools, we've got the children to change what they bring to lunch or in their sandwiches. But there's also the other side. Now, we heard from Lisa about childhood obesity. Of course, there is a toxic environment, but we have to also say that parents do have a responsibility for the weight of their children. And it's a big issue, and we'll be discussing it in the panel on education and lifestyle tomorrow. So perhaps come along there, and we'll continue afterwards in the coffee break now if you have any other comments. So I think, yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. First of all, there's no GMO crops in Israel, none whatsoever. Second thing is, any GMO in the world today that is a product that should be consumed by humans go through the same regulation as any new drug. So these are the equivalent measures, as you were asking, for introducing new GMOs.
Okay, we'll go out for a break, and I encourage you to come and speak and ask questions to the speakers, and we'll convene.
Come back. What time to come back? Tell them what to come back.